Oh, well, good evening, folks. This is Lila with some bedtime stories that I'd like to share with you. Well, with me tonight is Dean Val, our very dear friend, and Tim Pignon, also a very dear friend and very, very capable and confident in what he's about to read today. You'll see. I'll be reading from Book 6, Your Dream Visions, by Duane, the great writer, and we will discuss each of the chapters. And if any of you folks would like to come and ask questions, you're certainly free to do so. That would make it a lot more fun. Well, thank you, and we'll get started now. And so, as one studies what I am presenting, along with the real guidance, they will surely come to realize a much better position for themselves as they become more aware of all the deception that is taking place among this society, and basically all others. By doing so, the person begins to undo all the tap lines that have been installed in their other bodies from unscrupulous characters with their psychic masks. Life here presents itself in a dualistic fashion as external and internal, even though most people want to relate to the outer performance, they and others, that they are really what they are from their motivated intent. And so the end result is that they will see themselves in their dreams in a particular way. Most people keep trying to separate and deny their internal from their external play, but the two are not the same. No outer performance will fool the really universal guides who guard all the openings that lead into the real life. Whichever side is stronger will, of course, dominate the others, as the case of the personal self taking control over the internal, which would have been taught the real values, which would then be tossed for the outer life only. Then the valuable intuition and possible real connection disappears for more lifetimes of shadowy awareness. A good balance is the best position to live by, with the outer life and the inner life and its intent focused on the overall view, which is a complete isness. And so, as history goes, and so it is now, it will for sure be the persona, the outer face, which will rule the individual and not the true sincerity of the invisible being, unseen from the mind and its ideas of life. It is not a matter of being nice or accepted, but one of a living being that is real. In our life here, we breathe the air around us and sense something else cannot quite grasp what it is. So for the most part, each person tries to perceive what cannot be fully experienced with our senses as they relate to our emotions and mind only. So, as a persona becomes the greater strength, the individual will more than likely be an extrovert and will not have much confidence in his dreams. But when the internal takes more precedent, so does the person look more to their dreams. This persona will more than likely be open to the mystical side of life and the various occult arts. His dreams will be more acceptably real to them as they will look to his unseen side. The saints and saviors of the past had their attention on the fluid invisible as opposed to working the outer material world, were just profit, as most people do. Many of these people did not make their way very well along the social lines of this world, and so they turned to meditation and dreams for their salvation, one might say. In so many cases, they wanted to believe they had made contact with their gods, who supposedly were guiding them to do what they did. Here again is the difference between those who wanted to be like the flower children and the real universal guides. Very few, if any, of those in the so-called documented history of the Bible and other works ever reach or make contact with the true reality. The all is. As one becomes more aware, instead of clinging to a peaceful and pretty idea, they will take part in this world as long as they have a body here. The spiritual need and idea is mainly a passive notion for people with what their guides decide, and that mankind has always decided with its gods, and that his gods will decide for him. I think we have a pretty good idea of what we can say here. That's very good. Will you want to speak up? Please do.
Well, that first part that you read, Lila, was about the, getting people into the real universes. And I remember this commercial in the 70s for Chiffon Margarine where the lady comes out. She's Mother Nature, and she says, it's not nice to fool Mother Nature, because they had some, I think, chiffon margarine supposedly tasted like butter so much that they fooled her. But it was just a cute little commercial. But this is not, in reality, with the real guides, they don't get fooled because, it's really about survival and so-called letting people into the, you could say higher levels. It's not really that. It's just becoming more aware. But there is some of that where people are led into different, you could say, levels of awareness, but they won't let people in unless they do have some kind of a honorability and sincerity and willingness to help others too. So it's not just being a good person or anything. It's like everybody's, life is about survival. So are these people that are being let in, are they capable, willing, and, of helping others and supporting each other? I mean, because that's the whole thing, is supporting each other. We're supporting each other as we journey on to become more aware.
Sure. Yeah. Tim, I'm sure you have a thing or two to say about that.
Yeah, sure. I was interested in how we and how we, by becoming more aware, we're disconnected from the tap lines that we have, and how our senses only relate to our mind and emotions. And it was interesting to me how the what's called fluid invisible realms were mentioned. I just have a wonderment about trying to imagine the fluid invisible. What do you think that means? No, I was just remembering what Lilo read about the how by becoming more aware we disconnect our tap lines, and how our senses, our physical senses, only relate to the mind and emotions. But what I was wondering about was the description of the fluid invisible. Instead of these psychic realms.
Is that your question, fluid invisible?
Yeah.
Where are they?
Yeah, that's kind of, I'm trying to imagine why the word fluid was describing the invisible.
Is it something that Lila just read? Because I missed that part.
Yeah. She read about the fluid invisible instead of these physical.
Yes, I said, and as history goes, and so it is not now, it will be for sure the persona to rule the individual, and not the true sincerity of the invisible being, unseen from the mind and its ideas of life. It is not a matter of being nice and accepted, but one of a living being that is real. In our life here, we breathe the air around us and sense something else, but most cannot quite grasp so for experiences from our senses, as they relate to our emotions and mind only. So, as a persona becomes the greater strength, the individual will more than likely be an extrovert and will not have much confidence in his dreams. But when the internal takes more precedence, so does a person look more to their dreams. Thus, and this person will be more open to the mystical side of life and the various occult arts. His dreams will be more acceptably and real to them, as they will look to his unseen side. The saints and saviors of the past had their attention on the fluid invisible, as opposed to working the outer material world just for profit, as most people do now. Many of these people did not make their way very well along the social lines of this world, and so they turned to meditation and dreams for their salvation, one might say.